Go.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the session 5 of Symposium Religion and Cultural Diversity, Dialogue between the Asian Past and Contemporary Challenges. My name is Munazza Nasir, and I am QA moderator for this session. I am a master's student in the Erasmus Mundus program, Religion, Diversity and Globalization. It's a joint master program offered by University of Groningen and University of Coimbra. Because this is a hybrid session, we kindly ask all the participants to keep their microphones muted during the presentation to ensure smooth and without interruption communication. Please feel free to use the chat to send your questions and comments. We will address during discussion after the speakers have presented. For the introduction, let me introduce that. First, I would like to say that each person will have up to 20 minutes for their presentation. And at the end of the session, we will open the floor for discussions and question answers. So let us now begin with our first speaker. Our first speaker is Esteban Rene, presenting Nzhaki, constructing bodies in the age of globalization. Esteban is a master's student, also a master's student in Erasmus Mundus Global Program, a joint degree offered by University of Groningen and University of Coimbra. With the background in international relations and with the recent publication on cultural justice. He has previously collaborated with government institutions in Mexico and focuses his research on embodiment, ritual practices, and negotiation of identity in globalized context. His perspectives bring together cultural theory and social justice in compelling way. Esteban, please go ahead.
Thank you, Munazza. Okay. The presentation is being played.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so just to begin, to give you a brief idea of what my work is about, I would just begin by telling you that the name of my presentation, Nzhaki, Constructing Bodies in a Globalized World, is based on the idea of neoliberal globalization. So we can talk about different types of globalization, but I want to focus myself, especially on the context of neoliberal globalization. And why am I going to talk about this? Well, it has its origin with my research that I started back in 2018 in relation to the Otomi people, or also known as the Ñuñu, from a small town in the north of the Sierra in Puebla, a small municipality called San Pablito Cuautlan. What I want to tell you about this place where I was working for a period of time is that I started to get in contact with different ways of producing new knowledge towards the global phenomena that we are living. And there are certain points that I would like to discuss this session, which would start with what happened with the Otomis, who started from being a community outside of the globalized process till they started to be joined into the globalized process. So just for you to know, I don't know what's going on. Okay, so just for you to know, I would start telling you that with regards to the Otomis, they are very well known in Mexico for being for crafting a mate paper. A mate paper is a paper that has been historically used for many things. Probably the most symbolic way in which it was used was through the Mexican codexes that were the way in which people used to represent their historical, the stories of their societies. And what I want to tell you about this is that this Amate paper has been evolving through time. But as I just mentioned you, going more to the times of neoliberal globalization and talking about religion as well, it is important to mention you that when I started to conduct this research, I started to ask myself epistemological questions. And why these epistemological questions? Well, basically, because this has been a region that historically has been perfect. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. This has been a region that has been historically Roman Catholic and also animist. Actually, in Spanish, they are known as Cristianismo Serrano. But also, in the context of globalization, that what has been happening is that there has been a Protestant minority growing, and I will tell you a bit more about it. The region has been explored by anthropologists just since the 1950s. The first big anthropologist that got involved in the exploration of this area was Bodil Christensen by the early 1950s, and she was very important because she was the one that inspired them to start crafting different artisan jobs that they would be promoted by the government during the 1970s. And also what is going on since the 1980s is that there has been an active migration to the United States. A migration that we can see that is related to the arrival of the Summer Institute of Linguistics, which has also missionary activism, Protestant missionary activism in the region. And why am I telling you this? Well, basically because when the Summer Institute of Linguistics arrived to the region, what happened is that they decided to translate the Bible into different languages that were originary to that region. But they also did it with the aim of converting people from Catholicism to Protestantism, in this case, to an evangelical church. This movement was expelled from Mexico because they noticed that they also had political goals, but still we can see that they influenced a lot what happens nowadays in the region. So one of the important things that we can say are part of this nowadays discussion is that there is a migratory route between Duran and San Pablito that has been explored by the research of Libertad Mora Martinez, who has been seeing how these transnational networks have been affecting the identities of the Otomi people. But also, me recently, just as Munasa kindly introduced me, I published not long ago, a year ago actually, a book in which I was exploring how these traditions combine with modernity and how this indigenous identity seems to be split into two. An identity that it's more the traditional one, the one that it's more associated to the shamans, and also the modern one that it's more associated with the artisans who want actually to achieve more economic power. And going over this, this has to be with my title, and this is a very important part. What is Nzhaki? So just for you to know, the Nzhakis are Amate paper cuts, and just as it says there, they represent a way of creating bodies through which shamans conceive the world and act upon it. This is important. Why? And this is where the epistemological questions come into dialogue. What can we think about when we are reflecting about the Amate paper cuts? Well, we can say that actually the Amate paper cuts are very important because the Amate paper cuts are the way in which the shamans communicate between the humans and the non-humans. So that's the way in which these relationships are built in the case of the community. But they also are important because whatever phenomena is going on in the world would be solved by consulting to the shamans, and the shamans therefore would be cutting different figures in order to explain the people from San Pablito what is going on in the world. So for instance, here you can see an image that represents the modern society, or especially the rich people from the modern society. This was an image that was recollected by Jacques Galinier, who's also a researcher in regards to the Otomi paper cutouts. And what it's interesting to see is that they decided to use not the Amate paper, but they decided to use a newspaper, also negotiating between what belongs to them, what makes them being Otomi, and what represents the otherness. So this is an important cut. But we cannot understand what I'm telling you if we don't start thinking about this ontological term that has been discussed over the past decade. So why is it important to know a bit about what is going on with the ontological term to understand the research that I'm proposing? So basically, I would tell you two basic authors, well, actually three basic authors that inspired me to work in this research project. The first one was Mario Blaser, especially when it comes to his political ontology. This is important. Why? Well, basically because Mario Blaser makes us think of how to understand through political sciences, but also through philosophy and through religion, through religious studies, how these different interactions between the humans and the non-humans work in contexts in which we have ontological challenges. So challenges that are disafiering what we know about being. And what's, like, at least for me, the easiest way to discuss more about these ontological challenges? Well, it's something that I just discovered some years ago when I was in the National Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City. And when I was there, I attended to a conference. Actually, it was a book presentation. The title of the book is Cosmopolitica y Cosmohistoria, una antítesis, by María Isabel Martinez and Johannes Neurath. And this is important. Why? Because one of the theses that they pose in this book is that cosmopolitics analyzes situations in which the dead and non-human beings, such as mountains, participate in social lives and are actors in the political arena. And this is going to be very important. Why? Because what I was seeing at my time in San Pablito and while reading different authors, just as Galinier or like Libertad, is that in the case of San Pablito, this happens every day. And not only in San Pablito, but in general in the Otomi region. This happens every day. They negotiate, they have social relations with the non-human, and these social relations are conducted by the shamans. So the shamans open the door towards negotiating with what us, coming through a modern perspective, would see as impossible. And this is going to be important because when I was there, I find a case study that was very interesting. I titled it The Anger of the Seeds, based on what Doña Olegaria, the shaman that you can see on the picture that is at the right, told me. So when I was with Doña Olegaria, Doña Olegaria told me that the seeds were angry, that the seeds had a rage because they were not being respected by the people from the community, and that it was because of that there was a disorder in the cosmos, and that she had to intervene in order to look for a solution. And I was thinking about why Doña Olegaria was arguing this, because in my head, at least coming from a background in which I was studying international relations, it did not make any sense. But when I was exploring further this community, I also met Don Fausto. And Don Fausto, on the other hand, you can see a picture of him to your left. He is an artisan from the community. And while Doña Olegaria perceives the nowadays San Pablito as a problematic San Pablito. The other face is illustrated by Don Fausto, who actually likes what is happening in San Pablito. And he likes what is happening in San Pablito because he's descending from shamans, but he's not a shaman anymore. Now, he has this knowledge to craft bodies, to do the paper cutouts, and to do these paper cutouts that in the eyes of people who don't belong to the community seem to be very interesting and also seem to be like very artistic. And therefore, what he has been doing is that he has been mercantilizing with this mate paper in different places, not only in his community, not only in Mexico, but even abroad. And this is very interesting because Don Fausto, it's not the only one who's doing this. Actually, a lot of people in San Pablito are doing the same. And this is also accompanied by the fact that they were sort of sponsored by the Protestants who arrived to the community, those ones coming from the Summer Linguistic Institute, in order to access to certain job spaces in the US. So this migratory route that I was mentioning before, the one that connects Durham and San Pablito, is very important. Why? Well, basically because this route was opened by the Protestants, and these Protestants obviously have a very different idea when it comes to icons. So they reject the icons, and actually they want to change the mind of not only this community, but a lot of communities in Mexico towards this animism that they actively practice. And this is important because what is showing us, what this is showing to us now is that the people are changing their economic activities. And in this case, Don Fausto, who years ago used to be working as an agriculture and who was actively going to the field and continuing with these agricultural cycles, has stopped being in the field because now he is in his workshop crafting this amate paper and selling this amate paper. And the result of this is what I'm showing you here. These ones are actually pictures from San Pablito. I think that these pictures, at least when I first saw this in San Pablito, it was very shocked because it was curious to see that in the middle of the mountains, very, very far away from the capital city of Puebla State, which is something around 4 to 5 hours distance, had Victorian-style houses like the ones that probably they saw when they were in the US. But also we can see a lot of big constructions that are still being now built due to the economic power that these people, especially the artisans, are getting because of selling their art and also going to the US, sending money from the US in order to open new workshops and changing the dynamics. So it is very interesting because what we can see here is that when we talk about constructing bodies, what Doña Olegaria was arguing actually makes a lot of sense. Because for Doña Olegaria, this is completely a reconfiguration of the Otomi lifestyle. This is a reconfiguration of the system. And this is overall a reconfiguration of the society in San Pablito. So still I'm working more on this project. I want to continue doing research there. But what I can tell you about this is that this is not the only case in which we can see these trends. We can also see other examples of ontological clashes when it comes to the Otomis. In the work of, for instance, Iván Pérez Telles. Iván Pérez Telles actually has even published a paper called The Nefarious Winds, the Devils and COVID-19. So what happened there? Well, actually, he realized that one of the most known shamans of the community, Alfonso Margarito, who you can see on the left image, decided to create his own interpretation of what was going on during the COVID pandemic. And I would just read you something that I found very interesting from the interpretation of Alfonso Margarito. Alfonso Margarito argued that COVID was actually not coming from a laboratory, nor coming from a bat, nor all of the theories that we had from science, but instead he said that it was coming from an agreement between the Japanese and the Chinese monarchs with the Situ, who is an ambassador of the devil. And then he said that the entities, three entities, one the judge of the purgatory, the other one Lucifer, and the third one Angela, were committed to travel in 19 countries. That's why they decided to name it 19. And this was all a plan of Japan to take out the power of Christ, the sun, and to create cosmological disorder that inaugurated the new order, so that the cure was to create a new ritual apparatus to bring the order back. And this is very interesting, but also in the case of the research of Jacques Galinier, he presented us an image that I find very curious. This is an image in which you can see Hitler masks being worn by people who are participating in the carnival. And this is important because he said, okay, what happened is that when they migrated to the US, they got used with this totalitarian aspect of dictators, historical dictators that are well known in the modern world. And he said, what is going on here is that the Ottomans are showing us that they are bringing Hitler to make him being part of this of these ancestors that are being contacted in during the carnival, because he's a figure of the night, he's a figure of terror, and he's a totalitarian figure that accomplishes with the mission of giving us constant feedback with the living ones. So with the living ones, the relationship that they have with the living ones, they decided to bring up this figure of Hitler, to inaugurate Hitler as a figure in their carnival, a figure from the night. And what does this tell us? Well, basically, this tells us that the Ottomans are actively participating, just as I started, in constructing bodies that help us to understand the current process of globalization in a different way. I would like to finish by telling you that I got inspired by this concept of cognitive justice, because when I was there, I started to notice that the way in which they understand the world, the way in which their epistemology and their epistemic knowledge works there, it's something that we need to start getting more used to, understand them more, like researching more about them to understand them more rather than criticizing them. And I think that this is one of the many examples that talk about these ontological clashes that we're seeing nowadays, that these communities that are far from each other are connecting. All of this is giving us a lot of things to say for the future of research. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Esteban, for your thank you again for your interesting presentation. It's really interesting to see the interaction between religion, culture, and economy, and also the global forces. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Ana Carolina, and presenting her research titled "How Does Catholic Identity Shape National Cohesion and Governance in Ecuador During the Time of Crisis?" Carolina is also a master's student in Erasmus Mundus Rights Global Program, which is also a joint degree offered by University of Groningen and University of Coimbra, with experience in EU law and identity politics. She previously studied at the University of Salamanca and now explores how religion and national identity intersect in shaping governance, particularly in crisis context. Her research offers an important lens on Latin American political theology and social cohesion. Carolina, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Manasa, for that nice introduction, and thanks everyone for being here this afternoon. Really sunny here in Coimbra, and for the people joining online as well. As you introduced me, I'm Ana Carolina, and I am a political scientist by heart, although now I'm directing my research on other topics as well. So I will, throughout my presentation, I will guide you through different concepts in different field areas. So while we wait for the presentation to pop up, it's a very worthy one. It's not as hard or at least to me, not as boring as it sounds. It's actually very interesting, and it's a different approach on identity. Well, the question of which what I would be going through would be, how does Catholic identity shape national cohesion and governance in Ecuador? As a case study, I use what happened in Ecuador in 2022. So to contextualize you all a little bit, in 2022, we had a social unrest overall. And it was, we had different social groups claiming different things. It was basically driven and triggered by fuel subsidies and removal of economic crisis. Oh, there you go, thanks. This protest in this particular case was led by the CONAIE, which is the Confederation of the Nationalities of Ecuador. Now, I would like you to please keep this concept in mind, so because I will try to walk you through different conceptualizations of nationality in a little bit. And in my presentation today, we'll explore the role of Catholic identity in shaping national cohesion and governance, in this case, during times of crisis. Now, this social unrest erupted in response to economic austerity policies, and I think I'm able to change it up. Great. Here's a bit of an outline. I will first contextualize you what happened, then move on to the Catholic Church as a mediator, and then see how identity or Catholic identity can shape actually national cohesion in this case, and the church's influences on Ecuadorian politics. Now, as I was saying, this historical marginalization of indigenous groups and communities was very obvious during the protests in 2022. Although I have to say these were not the only ones. But for the purpose of this presentation, I've chosen what happened in 2022, the protests and social unrest as a case study. However, rather than focusing on the historical causes of these events, of these events of marginalization of the indigenous groups, my aim this afternoon is to explore how Catholic identity can actually shape national cohesion and governance, of course, further on, in context where national identity or the sense of belonging to a project, state, or a nation, one may say, is relatively weak. What I try to mean in this case would be how in scenarios where the sense of national belonging and national identity is rather weak, so you don't identify as strongly to your nation, how can these supradenominational entities, in this case the Catholic Church, can serve as the only common denominator among a very diverse society? So today, I will argue that the Catholic identity in this context served as a key factor in fostering national cohesion during the Ecuadorian crisis. Now, the Catholic Church served as a mediator. This is not a surprise to anyone. Actually, many different religious institutions have served as peace builders and mediators in different contexts. But in this case, after many days of social unrest, boycotts, and political disruptions in 2022 in Ecuador, the only figure or the only institutionalized figure that was able to end the social unrest was the Episcopal Conference intervention that actually facilitated the dialogue. So we have this long-standing moral authority that has always had this historical role of unifying the society. Now, this is an ongoing research of mine, and of course, it's not always fair to compare different realities, but it may be interesting to approach how these fairly new republics, as the ones in America, we don't have monarchies. That's what I was trying to say, and how this sense of or this unspoken respect for the Catholic authorities, how can this abstract approach can even replace what many monarchies in Europe perceive? So this inherent respect for Catholic institutions was very obvious in 2022. So the Episcopal Church positioned as a neutral supra-denominational entity to lead the dialogues and facilitate the dialogues to end the conflict now 3 years ago. And as I mentioned, historically the church has functioned as both a religious and a political force in Ecuador, and its involvement in 2022 demonstrated its continued role as a moral arbitrary national crisis. Now, hoping that you've all been able to follow me through this contextualizing of why the conflict happened, basically economic unrest, and then the role that the church had and continuously has until today, has made you all understand where I'm coming from. Again, I would like to repeat that rather than focusing on the historical causes of the social unrest, please bear in mind that what I tried to explain with the social unrest of the 2022 protests is just as a case study in showing how, in context with a rather weak sense of belonging to a nation state, another form of identity can actually replace that. So just very briefly, Ecuador is a plurinational state. We're the most biodiverse country per square meter, and that's very enriching, and that's a very good thing in theory. But when it comes to governing and actually creating public policy, that could be a challenge, because we are a relatively tiny country, but we have highly populated, so densely populated, and we have 18 different ways to approach the world. So my fellow religious studies peers would say cosmovisiones, right? So there are literally 18 different ways to see the world. So, now imagine what that makes, how hard can it be to govern in general, and how difficult it is to actually do so when you have a conflict. Now, when we speak about national cohesion, I am aware that not everyone here comes from the same political scientist background as me. Well, including me, I always have to review these things because we receive many more inputs from the different fields as well. We see that Catholicism acts as a unifying force in a plurinational state. Now, for those who remember at the beginning of my presentation, when I said, please bear in mind that the CONAIE, the Confederation of Nationalities in Ecuador, I asked you to please keep in mind this reference to nationality. Now here, it's important to understand that there are two different traditions when approaching nationality. One would be both from Latin. I don't mean to be complicated, but maybe since we speak probably Spanish and Portuguese here, would be jus sanguinis and jus solis. So when we speak about a nationality from a jus sanguinis perspective, we would mean that this is inheritant, and this is something you just have a nationality based on your ancestors, yeah. And when we refer to a nationality from a jus solis perspective, we mean suelo, right, ground and soil, and more cultural and more adaptive approach. None of those are right or wrong, but these are literally two ways to see the world differently, and they are not exclusionary clauses. So you can have a constitution in a country that refers to both of those concepts of nationality. So when we say that Ecuador is a plurinational state, we are probably, you guessed it, referring to the jus solis approach, saying that we come from very different backgrounds, very different, I don't like to use the word ethnicities, but different backgrounds in general, socially, economically, in inheritance, you name it. So despite Ecuador's legal recognition as a plurinational state, that's what our constitution says, national identity remains deeply tied to the Catholic and mestizo values in today's republic. So moving on to the church's influence on governance, keeping these concepts in mind and these two different approaches of nationality and how can both of these can coexist in under the same context. This supradenominational authority, called the Catholic Church in this case, it personified as the negotiator or as the only common denominator between all of these different interests. So when we had different fronts, you may say, different people, different social groups, and indigenous-led protests asking for different things in society, the only, well, at the end of the day, the one that was able to lead these negotiations wasn't even the delegates from the government, which would have been obvious, right? Because it would be the legitimate force under a country, but actually the delegate from the church. There's been many works done on this. At the end, I will be happy to share the works that I'm using for this, and also open to hear any other recommendations also. But this, like, balancing political engagement and moral leadership can be perceived as positive. The conflict was able to end. The boycotts were able to be stopped. But this is saying a lot. Is it a ticking bomb? Is it something good? Do we continue? Are we continuously legitimizing other source of unspoken forces coming from Republican traditions? Republic, like, meaning not in the U.S. way, of course, but like oftenly criticizing how many different countries serve as monarchies, yet we still legitimize and we still see the Catholic Church as the only legitimate institution to diminish a conflict. Is that correct? I don't know. I hope maybe to spark some sort of questions and some sort of different approaches to this. Well, to very briefly conclude, I know I have jumped from many different concepts, from political science, a bit of sociology and philosophy as well. I really want to focus on how this Catholic identity has evolved in Ecuador and the governance and national cohesion in general. Now here I put a question mark because at first it was a very simple and easy way to approach it. Yeah, Catholic identity is evolving in Ecuador or has remained the same throughout history, and it has contributed to national cohesion. So having the capacity to governance in general. But Catholicism is not the only, though predominant, but it's not the only religion in the country. And although the status of the Mestizo Catholic is the status quo right now, we do have many different approaches to the world and spiritual beliefs as well in the indigenous communities, and now more and more other forms of core monotheistic religions are being manifested. So these religious narratives serve as tool for national unity. You can say that in a way, but it also challenges the inclusion in a plurinational society. So at the end of the day, if it's an unspoken way to legitimize an institution and its influence, are we actually saying that, well, so did the church have more power than the state in itself? So it could be very controversial, and I mean to be thought-provoking this afternoon, because at the end of the day, and I criticize that with with a critical lens, in my context, in Ecuador, where we come from a tradition where the sense of national belonging is rather weak. We rather come from a rather regionalist or different approaches to belonging to the country. Then does it mean that then the Catholic identity is the only common denominator that we have amongst all of the Ecuadorians? I'm asking these in questions for my research to continue, hopefully. And just to mention that for future researches, maybe religious institutions and crisis mediation, how have they served? I know that in post-war European contexts, many religious institutions helped to understand what was happening. They serve as institutions in maybe DAL's terms, not necessarily physical, but more of abstract forms, right? And maybe this, of course, I think that the format of the conference this afternoon is actually that the questions will be done at the end. So I will just say or throw two questions to you, and of course online, spark maybe on the how you see this. So how can future research explore the role of religious narratives in fostering national unity in multi-ethnic societies? What I meant with this, so how can these religious narratives and how you try to tell the history of your country? Are we all Catholics in Ecuador? Does it mean that, including the different spiritual and including the different cosmovisions of indigenous groups? So how is it fostering national unity? Is it actually is it the only thing we have in common in such a diverse context? And then some other things would be, what are the potential biases, many, and limitations of the Catholic Church's influence and governance in national cohesion in Ecuador? Many may be thinking, in this case, did the Catholic Church has had interests of its own to end the conflict, or did it just act as out of goodwill and trying to end a social unrest? See, I didn't want to focus too much on the social problems that led to the 2022 protests, but just using it as a case study to exemplify better what has been happening. And finally, how effective is the Catholic Church as a mediator in resolving social political conflicts compared to other institutions? Again, not literally, not physically, but institution in abstract and maybe DAL's terms. Now, I am aware that I probably threw too much information. I hope it was clear enough for everyone. And these concepts are I am very passionate about them. I hope I was able to share it and transmit them in the same way. And for the question time, if somebody is not comfortable with English enough, I'm aware that this is an only English panel, but if somebody feels like asking a question in português ou espanhol, eu posso tentar com o meu portunhol ajudar também, mas thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Anna, Carolina, and it was really a thought-provoking discussion and presentation on identity politics and the role of religion in this domain. I would like to welcome our third presenter. The presentation is titled The Sacred Aspects of New Identity and Investigation of Brazilian New Pagan Practitioners. It is presented by Maria do Socorro. Maria is a Brazilian master's student in Erasmus Mundus-led global program, and she holds a degree in history from State University of Feira de Santana, where she researched Akkadian religiosity and focusing on goddess Inanna. Her current interests lie in Sumerian religion, modern witchcraft, and Western esoteric traditions. Maria's work brings together ancient spirituality and its contemporary transformation. Maria, thank you so much for joining us today, and you may start.
Thank you, Manasa. I would like to thank everyone that is here today, also everyone who is online. So, about my presentation, about my research, I would like to talk about how the new religiosities they are spreading in the Western society. So, my objective today is to thank you. Is to contextualize the phenomenon of witchcraft within the framework of contemporary Western society, especially in the scenario of Brazil, who is a country that is so rich in the religious diversity. So, should I complete the presentation? Yeah. Thank you. So, this is the overall view of the presentation of today. First, we are going to talk about what is Wicca. Wicca is one of the most popular religions of neo-paganism. Then we are going to talk about how the neo-paganism starts in Brazil. And to conclude, I would like to put some reflexive questions about the topic. So, to beginning, I would like to talk about the Wicca. Wicca, to contextualize for you, it's a religion that starts in the 50s. With it's actually is a paradigmatic example of a new religious movement because it seeks the divine through the veneration of ancient deities and also wants to reconnect with the nature. So the genesis of this religion is attributed to Gerald Rousseau Gardner. He was a retired British civil servant. Also, he was an amateur anthropologist, and he was an author of several books and about Wicca and about neo-paganism. So Gardner claimed that he discovered this religion in contact with the ancient coven in England. Therefore, does not historically there's not proof that this coven was trying to bring back an ancient religion, especially because in Gardner's work, he says that this old tradition tracing the pre-Christian traditions. However, it's crucial to acknowledge that this movement does not exhibit entirely the movement of neo-paganism, especially because Wicca is a movement inside neo-paganism. Neo-paganism is there's a lot of diversity of beliefs, a lot of diversity of practices, and inside the neo-pagan landscape, we can find different types of beliefs. We can find different types of practices, especially because the practitioners they try to bring back the studies and the practices related to the Greek gods, to the Egyptian gods. So, nevertheless, despite Gardner's assertion that Wicca represents one of the oldest religions, reviving also aspects of a Greek culture cute, this cannot be proved historically. Hugh Houghton, it's an author that he have a lot of research in the field of neo-paganism, and he says that witchcraft is not exactly a resurrection or a continuity of these old Greek cultural cults. Actually, the neo-paganism, especially the witchcraft, it's a mix of new elements. Actually, they try to bring back the worship to ancient deities, but at the same time, they mix with knowledge of magic of the Western society. So, to try to describe a little bit more about what is this modern witchcraft, what is neo-paganism. Basically, there are some characteristics that I want to share with you today. So yeah, what's defined this neo-pagan spirituality? What is that? The first element is the reconnection with nature and the sacredness of the earth. For example, they have a profound reverence for the natural world. And the natural world, it's a living being. So, and it's also sacred and it's also divine. And also the polytheism or deifical pluralism, that it's a belief in the veneration of multiple gods. So often drawn from the pre-Christian pantheons. Also, inside the worship of multiple deities, they are the sacredness of the female body. The female body, it's understood as a generation. It's a generator of life. So the image of a woman inside witchcraft is really important to understand how nature works. That's why nature is also sacred. So the revival and the reconstruction of pre-Christian traditions. So they have a huge inspiration from the past. They draw inspiration from the religions, mythologies, the practice of ancient pagan cultures, especially from Europe, but also from Near East, and especially in Brazil, especially from Latin America. So also one really, a really important point in this spirituality is the being autonomous, because inside modern witchcraft, inside paganism, there are not big institutions. Actually, the practice it's inside the nature, or doing inside of their own homes. That's why it's such a personal spirituality, it's such a personal practice. And yeah, so basically, to understand what neo-paganism is, we can observe these characteristics. However, the traditions of witchcraft, of modern witchcraft, they can change, especially because they are trying to seek the different traditions and mix with new elements. So, in the case of Brazil, we can see a huge diversity related to the witchcraft, because we know that they have these polytheistic beliefs that nature is sacred, that also that also the body, the human body, is sacred, especially because the female body it's capable to create life. So inside witchcraft, this is a really sacred thing. So, but let's go now to Brazil. In Brazil, it's really difficult to define the beginning, precise beginning of these practices, especially because we have such different traditions. Traditions that mix elements of all indigenous traditions, that mix elements of European traditions, and especially African traditions. So when we think about witchcraft in Brazil, we think about a practice that try to put all these elements in the same, that put these elements in only one practice. So, and also in Brazil, the modern witchcraft not emergent as an isolated phenomenon, but actually it's, as I was saying before, it's a product of a complex historical and cultural process. And different elements of different cultures emerge to create this newest expression, this new identity. When we talk about identity inside modern witchcraft, it's really important to think about the concept of embodiment, a concept that from Anne Koch. She writes about this concept. So embodiment, it's about all the experiences that we have through our bodies. The act of to sing a chant, the act of do prayer, the act of participate in a ritual. So all the process that we have, all the experiences that we have with spirituality, but using our bodies, it's called embodiment. So the embodiment, it's a really important thing is inside witchcraft, because inside the tradition, the many traditions of neo-paganism, the body is always sacred. So when we use the body in a ritual, we are using a sacred tool. So these elements, especially in the landscape of Brazil, brings a really interesting phenomenon, because we are talking about traditions, Brazilian traditions, especially the indigenous, that deal with the physical rituals, that deal with knowledge of nature. So when we mix these two factors, we can have a really diverse spiritual practices. And about it's not the exactly beginning of witchcraft in Brazil, but with the cessation of the military dictatorship, the Brazilian territory experienced a huge. It was a gradual opening. It was not so fast, but it was a huge opening to new ideas, to new social ideas, to new religious ideas, and this process also was facilitated with the access to the internet, with the access to books, to magazines. So when all this information comes to Brazil, we can see a lot of people trying to stay apart of the military ideas, especially from the Christian ideas. So we don't have exactly a first group in Brazil that talk about witchcraft, that describe the witchcraft. We have some authors that talk about it, that try to bring this tradition to the field of Brazil, but we cannot trace the beginning of the beginning, especially because of decentralization of these groups. So So, especially in the landscape of Brazil, we can see that a lot of groups, the LGBT community, the feminism, they are like groups that are really inserted in this phenomenon. Especially because the witchcraft brings a certain notion of freedom, a certain notion of identity that is not a strict identity. The people are free to create their own practice, especially because it mixes a lot of traditions. And so to conclude first, I would like to thank everyone who watched until here. I'm really happy. But to conclude, I would like to put two reflexive questions about what is this new identity and the importance of this new identity in the field of religion. First, I would like to put here, in what ways can neo-pagan spirituality impact environmental issues? Because the practice of witchcraft is focused on the nature. So, these groups try to create a new relation with the nature, a healthier relation. And the first is what are the implications of new religious movements, such as witchcraft, on modern notions of identity? Especially because inside the neo-pagan groups, the identity of a woman have a sacred characteristic, and it leads especially to rethink the gender roles. So, I would like to thank everyone. I'm really happy to present this research here, and thank you.
Thank you so much. Paredes for this thought-provoking presentation and about revival of like Asian spirituality and the force of globalization behind it. Thank you so much. Our final speaker today is Qazi Ghulam Singh. He is presenting a documentary film called Manat, which is released on 2023. Qazi is a Bangladeshi student and also Erasmus Mundus Global program. He is currently studying also in Coimbra with a background in anthropology. His work explores religious practices, labor rights, and identity through immersive visual methodologies. His documentary Manat is a compelling ethnographic film that reveals how spiritual traditions are experienced and expressed within everyday life in Bangladesh. Qazi's works bridge the academic and artistic and making his insight more accessible and more emotionally resonant. Qazi, give it to us.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's Qazi. So today I'll be presenting my documentary on Manat, which is the name of a religious practice, and this practice is mostly practiced by the syncretic practitioners. So before starting the movie, I will like to give you some basic ideas about the religious landscape of Bangladesh. If we go to the presentation, yeah. So,
good afternoon. It is my pleasure to
about the presentation, PowerPoint presentation. No, the PowerPoint presentation. Sorry for the delay. So basically what I will try to talk about in this short presentation is that give you the short landscape of the religions or the identities of Bangladesh. So basically Bangladesh is a country from South Asia. So we have a population of 169 million people. I know it's a huge population. And 91% of the whole population are from Muslim background, and 8.9% of the whole population are from the other religions. And the other religions are consisting of Hindus, Christians, and Buddhists, and many more. And some of them are from the indigenous group of people. So if we go to the PowerPoint presentation, on the next slide, we will see that the religious tension between the Hindus and Muslims, it started from the colonial era. And when East Bengal was part of the British Raj, I mean, when whole South Asia was part of the British colonial rule, they have, in 1793, they took a policy. The policy was called the Permanent Settlement Plan, and the policy was taken by the British people. And on the next slide, we will see the next one. Oh, on the next, yeah.
Next.
Yeah, not next. So we will see that in 1793 there was some peasant uprisings that happened after 1793. So what the fact was here is that after 1793, the British colonial rulers, they took a policy which is called Permanent Settlement Plan. So in this plan, they have distributed all of the land of South Asia between all of the landlords. And what is interesting about it is that the landlords were mostly Hindus, and all of the farmers in East Bengal were from Muslim backgrounds. So there was this religious tension between the landlords and the farmers, as they're coming from different religious backgrounds. Also, if we look at the other events that are relevant to the religious divide in South Asia or in Bangladesh, which one of them was the Calcutta riots. So what happened to Calcutta riots is that when the Muslims has demanded a new country rather than being part of India, a mass riot was happening in colonial South Asia. So in this mass riot in Calcutta, which is part of India right now, in Calcutta there was a mass riot and many Muslims and Hindus got killed in this riot. And the aftermath of this riot was also happening in Bangladesh, specifically in Noakhali. So on that region, there was a massive riot. It was a communal riot between the Hindus and Muslims. And many Hindus were killed by the Muslim mobs. And as a result of this backlashes, we got divided. We got two separate countries. One is India and another is Pakistan. So after the partition, Bangladesh became part of Pakistan, and we were East Pakistan at then. And on the next slide, we will see that when Bangladesh got independence, we got a new constitution. And officially, our constitution is a secular country, but you will find the interesting fact in the constitution that even though we are a secular country, the state religion of Bangladesh is Islam. So you can guess the preferential position of Islam in our constitution. And then what is syncretism that I will be discussing in this movie? So syncretism is the encounter, syncretism in religion is like encounter between different religions. So when different religions encounter between themselves, a new form of practice emerges. For example, if we look at the coexistence of Egyptian goddess Isis and the Greek god Demeter at the same time in Hellenistic period, it can be classified as a classic example of syncretic practice. But how these syncretic practices are treated in Bangladesh and how the religious minorities are treated in Bangladesh, I can give you a very short example. Like this photo is from 12th September from the last year. And what happened to this site is that basically this is a tomb site of Sufi saint. Even though he is a Sufi saint from a Muslim background, many extremist narrators of Islam are being antagonistic to these kinds of Sufi practices. And what happens normally to these Sufi shrines is that these are the main places where syncretic practices exist. For example, in this mazar or in this saint or tomb house, many Hindu women can even pray their prayers. So it is like an open place for all of the religions at the same time, even though it was a Muslim saint. Also, if you look at the vandalism that was happening in one of the Hindu temple in Bangladesh, it is from 2021. You can see it is from the south of Bangladesh. So many dominant narrativists of Islam, they are very allergic to the pagan practice or Hindu practices in Bangladesh, and they vandalized this temple. And also, this is another example. This tomb site, it was also a tomb site of a Muslim saint. But even though it's a Muslim saint, many people whom are the believers in Islam, they are making such extremist narrations of Islam, and they're being antagonistic to these kinds of shrines where most of the syncretic practices happen. So now you get my point of my introduction, that syncretic practices is not an easy thing to practice in Bangladesh. It is a contested thing. It is you have to constantly negotiate. You have to fight with many groups of people. And now I'll just open the short video from the director of this movie, and after that we will go to the movie.
Good afternoon. It is my pleasure to present this ethnographic film to this symposium. Through this film, we tried to explore and understand Manot or religious vows in the context of Bangladesh. This documentary is filmed in 3 sacred sites of 3 different religions where people of multiple faiths visit for their vows. Those 3 different sites are a temple of a Hindu goddess, a Muslim preacher's shrine, and the tomb site of a cult from a comparatively newly originated religion named Pagal religion. In Bangladesh, people possess strict religious identities and the boundaries are often difficult to cross. We found people's flexibility to visit sacred sites apart from their own religion for fulfilling their cherished desires through the custom Manot. This ongoing journey is trying to explore individuals' involvement in Manot, which offers them the language for demanding the possible and the impossible. In some cases, those can be the interlocutor's own longings or imposed upon them by others, or it can be both simultaneously. Through this experience, we found the interfaith practices, the interplay between gods, and the interconnectedness of 3 sacred sites through the custom Manot. By transcending and at the same time not transcending their conventional religious identities and boundaries, as they take vows in their own ways regardless of the sacred site's direction. I hope you enjoy this film. Thank you, everyone.
Let's play the movie. No? Yeah, that's it.
অনেকদিনের পুরাতন এই মেলাটা চলে আসছে। মা ভগবতী বড় দুর্গা দেবী কত বছর পূর্বে থেকে এই পূজাটা এখনো হইতাছে। আমি বুড়াবুড়ি বলা হয় কিন্তু বলে, কিন্তু আসলে ওনার ভালো নাম হলো বড় দুর্গা দেবী। বড় দুর্গা দেবী, মা ভগবতী বড় দুর্গা দেবী। পরম পিতা ভাগনাথ, পরম পিতা ভাগনাথ, পরম পিতা ভাগনাথ। কারোর কাছে কোনো উপদেশ নিতে হয় না, নিজেরাই নিজেদের মনের আবেগ প্রকাশ হয়। পরম পিতা ভাগনাথ তাদের আবেগকে মূল্যায়ন করে, তাদের চাওয়া পাওয়াকে পূর্ণাঙ্গ করেন। ওনার সাথে সম্পর্ক হলো সবার, যিনি উনাকে মন দিয়ে তার হৃদয়ে আসন দিতে পারেন তিনি উনার সাথে সম্পর্ক। আর সাধারণ মানুষের সাথে সম্পর্ক হলো সাধারণ বেদির জন্য, সাধারণ মঙ্গলের জন্য, ধনের জন্য, জনের জন্য, বিভিন্ন ভাবে সাধারণের সাথে সম্পর্ক। আর ওনার সাথে সম্পর্ক হলো আধ্যাত্মিক সম্পর্ক।
এটা তো হযরত বাদশাহ কাশ্মীরি গোরাত স্পিরিট মাজার, এটা হলো অলি মাজার। আর গোরাত যখন দিনের কথা আলোচনা করতো, আল্লাহর পরেই অলি আল্লাহ, আল্লাহকে যেই নাম রাখছে অলি আল্লাহ, এর ভালোবাসে মাজারে আসে।
এখানে হিন্দু, মুসলমান, বৌদ্ধ, খ্রিস্টান যেই আছে সবাই এসে মা বুড়া বুড়ি বড় দুর্গা তার মতো সব করতে পারে, সে জায়গাতে কোনো আশীর্বাদের ফল লাভ।
অলি আল্লাহর মাজারে সব ধর্মই চলে, কারো প্রতি আমাকে মানা নাই।
সর্বধর্মের মহামিলনে এখানে কোনো আছে কেউ কিন্তু জিজ্ঞাসা না রাতে কি কোন ধর্ম নিয়ে আসে, আর খাওয়া দাওয়া হবে তাও কোনো রেস্ট্রিকশন, একই সাথে একই শাড়িতে এক পাশাপাশি খাওয়া দাওয়া হচ্ছে কোনো। কাজেই যে বাগনাথ তাকে সেইভাবেই তার মনের
কারো সংসারে শান্তি নাই, হয় না। আর একটা ব্যবসা করবার গেছে, ব্যবসায় উন্নতি নাই, যে দরবারে যাই তো মানুষ ফিরে আসি, আল্লাহ যদি একটু আমাকে দয়া করে।
যে ভক্তে মানুষই করে কোনো অসুখ ব্যাধি বিপদ আপদে মায়ের নামে মান তার ফলটা যখন মানে ভালো ফল পায় তখন উনি ওই পাঠা কেউ মুরগ দেয়, কবুতর দেয়, ডিম দেয়, এই সমস্ত জিনিস এই মা বুড়ির নামে বড় দুর্গার নামে দান করে মানুষের দিয়ে। এই হাত পা মাথা দেওয়ার হলো ডাক্তার ফেল করতে মাথা ব্যথায় অথবা মানসিক যন্ত্রণায়। পাগলনাথ তাকে মাথার ব্যথা যন্ত্রণা থেকে মুক্তি দিচ্ছেন, তাই মন দিয়ে ডেকে তার কাছ থেকে আদায় করছে, যার ফলেই বিনিময়ে মাথা ভালো হয়েছে। আর আর একটা জিনিস হলো এখানে যে মাটি আছে এই মাটি হলো মহা ঔষধ। আপনার যে কোনো রোগ হোক এই মাটি মাখবে, একটু মুখে দিবে, তাতেই তার মুক্তি।
মানুষরা করার নাগে গুছাল টুছাল কইরা আল্লাহ রসুলের নাম লইয়া পাগলের নাম লইয়া মানুষ করার নাগে যে আমার পাও ভালো, আমার মাজা ঠ্যাং ভালো হইলে আমি পাগলা হইলে যে মানুষ ঠ্যাং দিমু, হাত দিমু। আমার একবার মাথা ব্যথা করতো, নামাজ কইরা যে আমার মাথা ব্যথাটা যদি জায়গা প্রথম দিন যাই আমি মাথা দিই। আল্লাহ দিলে আমি মানুষ যা করছি আল্লাহ রসুলের দোয়ায় আল্লাহ দিচ্ছে আমার মাথা ব্যথা নেই, ওরাই আমি মানব দিয়ে গেল।
মেয়ে আর নাতনি মানসিক করছিলাম যে ওরা যদি আটা পারে ভালোভাবে তাহলে আমি আমি সব যদি আমার নাতিন কি মেয়ে আটা পারে তাহলে আমি আগরবাতি মোমবাতি কি এটা ঘোরা দিয়ে যাবো। আটা পারতে পারে যে নিয়ে এসেছিলাম না, ডাক্তার দেখাই নেই, ডাক্তার দেখাই নেই কে মানে কইছি সবাই কিন্তু তাই আমি বিশ্বাস করছি, বিশ্বাস করতে পারে আমার বিশ্বাস করছে পুরান হয় দেখে তো না কত ঘোরা টেবা টেবা ঘোরা পুরান আসতে তো হইতো না। গোড়াটা আমি ওই গোড়াটা আমার কাছে দিলে আমি খান টান করাম, খান টান করিয়ে আমি আগরবাতি মোমবাতি দিয়ে গোড়াটা বসে আমি নামাজ টামাজ করে উলুগুলো দিয়ে আমি আইসে করবো, তাই একলাই নিয়ে দেবো। একই তো তার বুঝলে আপনার আল্লাহ খানা মানা ভগবত একই তো দেবতা একটাই মানে আপনার আমি যে রক্ত মারে সেই রক্ত তাই না, তাহলে তেমনি
আপনি হিন্দু, আমি মুসলমান, অন্য থেকে বৌদ্ধ খ্রিস্টান, এভাবে যদি আপনি হিন্দু যদি আল্লাহ আমি মুসলমান যদি হলো হিন্দুদেরই কাজ করি তাহলে কিন্তু সমাজ থেকে বাধা দিব। আর যদি আপনি যদি পাগল পাগল বলেন সমাজ থেকে কিন্তু কেউ বাধা দিব না।
এখানে দান বেশি দেখা গেছে হিন্দুর চেয়ে মুসলমানে বেশি করে এই জিনিসটা, কারণ হিন্দুরা তো এটা করে এই পূজা এটা তো মানে, কিন্তু তারা দেখা গেছে একজনে যদি একটা মানত করে যদি সফল পায় তাহলে আরো 10 জনের কাছে আলাপ করে যে আমি এটাই করছি, ওই তার দেখা দেখি দেখা গেছে আরো 10 জনে মনে করেন এটা মানতরা করে বা এখানে আসে।
কারণ আধ্যাত্মিক ভাব জাগৃত তার দর্শন, তিনি তার কৃপা পান, তিনি তার ঐশ্বর্য।
আমরা মুসলমান হিন্দু আল্লাহ এর ক্ষমতা রাখছে, এর ক্ষমতা আছে বাড়িতে থেকে বলছে যদি আল্লাহ ওইটাই আর কি ই করে বলে না দোয়া ওইটাই হয় যেটা মানসি করে ওইটাই আর কি আল্লাহ নেয়।
মহিলারাই বেশি করে, পুরুষও মহিলা বেশি করে। যখন কিনা মানুষের বাচ্চা কাচ্চা হয়
ছোট হয় তখন সমস্যা দেখা যায়, এই নীল হয় একবার, সবুজ হয় একবার, ওই তখন এটা না এই মানত করে যে আমার এটা যদি সমস্যার সমাধান হয় তাহলে আমি এই জিনিসটা বলি তোমার।
বলছে দুটা মেয়ে আছে, তার যদি একটা ছেলে হয়, ছেলে হলে কেশর পাগলার দোয়া হয়, তাইলে তার ওজনে মনে করেন চাউল সবজি দিয়া মানুষ সারা দেবো, বাতাসা ছিটাইবো। হে আইসা আমাকে সাথে আইসা ওই যে তার ওজনে ওই জিনিসগুলো মাপ দিয়ে দিতেছে, দিয়ে বাতাসে ছিটিয়ে ওই যে হারতাছে।
যেমন 40 থেকে 50 বছর বয়স তারা এই দরবারে বেশি আসে। এদের কিছু কারণ আছে, যেমন একজনের বাচ্চা হয় না, যে আমার ছেলে হয় না, মেয়ে হয় না, আমি দরবারে যাই একটু মানত করুম, একটা বাপ্তি ধরম, দুই রেখাত নফল নামাজ করুম, কইরাই মহিলা বেশি আসে। ওদের হাদে আছে দরবারের পক্ষ থেকে 40 টাকা জোড়া। কেউ খুশি হলে বেশিও দেয়, কম দিতে পারবো না, পারলে বেশি দেবো দরবারে। জামগড়া থেকে একটা লোক আইসা বললো, আম্মা আমার বাচ্চাটা অসুখ, বাচ্চাটা যদি ভালো হয় তাহলে আমি একটা বাচ্চা ঘুরা তাজা ঘুরা দরবারে দিয়ে যাবো। মেয়েটা এমনি একটু ছিল, পরে এনে শুনলো যে এনে মানত করলে দরবারে যদি মানত করে তাহলে সব ইয়ে হয়ে যায়। পরে দরবারে মানত কয়া মাটি ঘোরা দিন না, আমি পরে তাজা ঘোরা কিনে দিয়ে গেলো। ঘোরা দেখছ, এই যে লাল ঘোড়াটা দিয়ে গেছে। হ্যাঁ,
এই ঘোড়ার দাম কত হবে?
তাও 50,000-এর নিচে না।
বাইরে কোনো কিনে আনছি, ওই যে মাথা বানিয়ে এই যে আগরবাতি মোমবাতি জ্বালিয়ে বাতাসা ছিটিয়ে দিচ্ছি, তারপরে যে মানতে গেলাম তেজ বাক্স অনেক 10 টাকা করে দিয়ে হারে টাকাটা অনেক দিয়ে গেলে সরকার নেয় নালা হেরাই কোনো পাগলের করে তেলা দিয়ে যার যা করতে দিয়ে খায়।
That's it, and I hope everybody understood what I tried to say through the movie. Thank you.
Thank you, Kazi, for your visually powerful and thought-provoking presentation, and also for this documentary. We now moved into a question, answer, and discussion segment. I invite audience here and also who are joining online to ask question or discussion point or any input you want to add to any of these speakers, and feel free. Yeah. If I'm allowed to have a comment on presentation done by Anna Carolina, and it was really interesting to see that Ecuador has kind of similar power or identity politics going on as we were facing in South Asia. It was really interesting because, as you know, that Kazi also mentioned that Pakistan was previously part of India, and then we were under the British rule. And the cause of Pakistan and the foundation of Pakistan was religion. So the nationality and the cohesion it created at that time was that people who are Muslim, who follow Islam, should have their own country. So they demanded Pakistan on the name of Islam. And Bangladesh and Pakistan both were Muslim, had Muslim population, but afterwards everything changed. When they got Pakistan, there is Pakistan and West Pakistan, but then the cohesion was no longer based on religion. And then Bengal asked that their language is Bengal and it cannot be Urdu. And the other part of Pakistan said, no, we are Urdu speaking, so the national language should be Urdu. Now religion is no longer a cohesive element, now it has become a language. And then in 1971, Bangladesh got separated from Pakistan, and now it is on its own. And now in Pakistan, there is a discussion about the national cohesion and nationality or national identity is not based on language. Now it's on ethnicity. And now it's either you are Punjabi, or Balochi, or Sindhi, or Pakhtun. Your ethnicity demands that you are a separate nation. You have your different identity. So I mean, it was quite interesting to see that how religion, culture, ethnicity, language, all these are tools to use people or to use in a political dimension, and to politicize each and every element of identity. Yeah, I was just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Am I allowed to reply? Do we have?
Yeah.
Should I? Yeah, I think it's easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you cannot hear me from all over here. Yeah? Well, there. Okay, great. So basically for the people that did not join or did not listen before, the presentation was on Catholic identity and different approaches to nationality, especially in cases where, differently from Pakistan, where I feel that the sense of belonging and identity to the nation-state project is pretty strong. Coming from Ecuador, where I would rather argue that's pretty, or I want to say weak, but like not as strong, especially in time of conflict, how Catholic identity can replace national identity. So it was really interesting to hear that, although of course I would never say that the project or the nation was built on a Catholic identity. We had our independence in 1822, so fairly a new republic. I mean, depends what you consider. It was not on religious terms, rather than being independent, not a colony anymore. But now, since we are a republic, we are not a monarchy anymore. Yet we still have this. We don't have a king, of course, or a queen. You still have this respect or to this abstract figure, which is the Catholic Church. So it's interesting to see it how this like modern approach of unspoken figures and how we legitimize their representation among this plurinational state under this supra-denominational entities, which are the institutions per se. So I would have, if it wasn't for this cultural conference, I would have never drawn similarities between Pakistan and Ecuador. So it's great to hear. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Since I'm up here, if anybody else has a comment or a comment or a question, I encourage you to be provoking. Like, well, if not, I'll take a seat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have question for Maria. If you can answer it from here. How do elected neo-pagans select which deities, symbols, or traditions do incorporate into their practices, and what are the main ones and their meanings?
Okay. So
Would I read?
no, it's okay. Thank you. So about the choosing of a deity to worship inside witchcraft, a few years ago I had contact with the members of a coven, and it was my main question for them because it was really interesting that they were a group that practiced together, but at the same time each one of them has a personal deity. So when I asked them the main answer, it was that when they enter in witchcraft, they start to work on themselves, like self-knowledge. And in this process, they discover deities that have like some similarities. For example, when we talk about people inside witchcraft that would like to understand their own identity, they will choose deities that will help them to understand who they are, what they need to do to be better with themselves. So, and basically, what I observed about the truth, it's sad. But related to the symbols inside witchcraft, I observed that these groups they have they specific symbols, but also they have the general symbols. For example, the symbol of the pentagram. The symbol of the pentagram for these neo-pagan groups represents the elements of nature, and it has like the symbol of the moon, the symbol of the sun. So I observed that the most general symbols, they are related to nature. So when you observe a symbol, you remind of all the characteristics that symbol have, and how you can incorporate on your life that symbols. So the symbols are there like to remind of a different meaning. So yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question for you.
Oh,
While you're presenting about the neo-pagan movement in Brazil, because when I came to Europe, in basically Netherlands, I met some of the groups who were practicing the neo-paganist cultures. Like they're basically what they're trying to do in Netherlands was that the Dutch people, they have their own kind of deities before Christianity came up. So now they're trying to reviving. There are some groups who are trying to reviving those old pagan deities, and one of them was Nehalinia that I was searching in the internet and I found it. But in contrast to the European neo-pagan revival, do you think the Brazilian revival of the neo-pagan culture has something new to offer, or it is just something like another kind of neo-pagan movement? What do you think?
When we talk about the landscape of Brazil, we are talking not only about this revival of ancient traditions, but we are talking also about keeping the heritage of our indigenous people, so of our indigenous deities, the practice of our families, of our grandmas and grandpas. So I guess that the one aspect that is really interesting is how the protectionists in Brazil, they can at the same time bring new elements for the Western historicism, but also how they can mix it with these elements of heritage. So yeah, I guess for what I observe until now is that I'm still developing this research. This is one of the most important aspects for the practitioners in Brazil. Thank you.
I think it's time for us to conclude this whole event. As we conclude, I would like to sincerely thank all our speakers and all the people who joined today on site and online. We really appreciate your presence and your discussions. So thank you so much, and I hope you get in touch with this whole cycle of symposium and enjoy it. Thank you. Thank you so much.